Video number 2, and we just gonna jump right into this shit. Tell the YouTube order he can go fuck himself and start answering some questions. So I'm gonna reply to all the questions that came from the Prestige Gamers website and all the users that decided to send me their questions from over there. First question up from Jim Bob Lee. He writes a whole bunch of shit right here. So you guys, I'll leave it up for a couple seconds, that way you can read it. Basically, he's talking about some of the gun violence that we have in this country, in the United States. And obviously, he's not from the United States, so clearly he's asking a question here, and it's all the way at the bottom. Question is, should the Constitution be updated to reflect the 21st century's technological advancements, such as limitations of what weapons are constitutionally acceptable and classifying firearms accordingly? And should gun laws be changed in either direction to protect the public from any further incidents like the ones we've seen so far this year? Now, you touched on two hot button topics and lead one right into the other. Now, I've done a full answer on gun control already. Gun laws and accessibility in another question and answer session, which basically breaks down to common sense items. However, the part about the Constitution is just as controversial over here for the same reason as gun control. The main thing about our country is how divided it is right now between conservative Republicans and liberal Democrats. Between these two, there's almost no middle ground. It's completely gone. It's to the point that they disagree with each other just for the sake of not agreeing for one another, no matter what the issue. It could be something mundane like fucking casual Fridays at the office. One will argue that we need casual Friday for morale, and the other will say, well, why not have casual Mondays instead? And then they'll argue over whose side is morally correct. That's just how fucked up things are right now. So when you talk about updating the Constitution, that alone is something one side will not do. Republicans utterly refuse to change anything when it comes to the Constitution. And more to the point, historically conservatives in the country do not want to change any part of any laws that originated 250 fucking years ago. They feel that the original Constitution should remain the way it is because it allows them to interpret what they want from it. Hence, the right to bear arms in the Second Amendment. Ratification to the Constitution requires 38 states' approvals for revisions, knowing that it would have to be agreed upon issue to add another amendment. Democrats consider the Constitution a living document. It's something that needs to evolve and change over time to match the current landscape. For the exact reasons you stated, the Constitution was written 200 years ago by white men who owned slaves, who didn't let women have their own rights, who were under the duress of another potential war that was brewing. We just battled England back. However, France and Spain still wanted a piece of this country. So they created this document under completely different times. Republicans know that with the way the government works right now, keeping the vague wording of certain amendments allow the courts to interpret the Constitution how they see fit. Instead of actually writing this shit out, instead of being specific in what the laws should do, instead of providing updates to the original core of our principles to match the times, they will never allow the changes. They know how difficult it is to amend the Constitution. They know it's almost virtually impossible unless this is a universally agreed upon project. However, they can sit back and continue their false narratives, their straw man arguments on any topic that they want, as long as they still have the ability to block any changes to the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. They will maintain that. Now keep in mind, the Constitution usually adds new laws. You know, aside from prohibition being added and then it was eventually repealed, the government hasn't changed or updated the Constitution since its inception. Personally, I think that's a mistake, because regardless of what the core principles are of the Constitution, generations change, man. The world changes. Technology has changes. It's one thing to keep your core principles. I certainly agree with that. We have our core principles. The freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, the right to protect yourself. But essentially, providing updated and guidance to the current laws makes fucking sense. At least make the attempt to solve today's problems in the world. But instead, they allow it to continue how it is. Interpret the law how they want, because they want to be able to say that, oh, I interpret the Constitution this way, so that means we should not be changing it. Next question from the guy with no gamer tag. Unfortunately, I couldn't come up with an intellectual question, so I've gone for a lighthearted one instead. In the world of Horizon Zero Dawn, if you had to spend a weekend alone with Bryn, the crazy guy, or Nil, who would it be and why? You know, I had to fucking Google who Bryn was because I couldn't even remember the motherfucker. Nil I remember, because he was the douche who randomly wanted to fight you, but Bryn, I barely remember that sumbitch, man. You know, part of that was that as good as Horizon Zero Dawn is, some of the conversations were a bit on the flat side. You know, Aloy would have some conversations about background and explaining the world and the history and the lore of the game, but I was skipping good parts of that shit because I just wanted to fight some fucking robots. Now, to answer your question, I would pick Nil, and here's why. Bryn was a crazy motherfucker, but at no point did he actually want to fight you. If I was trapped with that motherfucker, I would want to kill his ass in a weekend. Probably just to shut him the fuck up because he was so goddamn annoying. Nil, on the other hand, was a jackass who wanted to fight you for some horribly written reasons in the goddamn game. To this day, I still don't get that plot point why you ended up fighting that sumbitch at the end. Whatever. I know how you got there. I just don't get how the logical progression of how that narrative actually got there. Anyways, he would eventually want to fight me to the death. If I killed Nil, that would be self-defense and justifiable. If I killed Bryn, at best, my reasoning would be what? Temporary insanity? The motherfucker was driving me nuts, so I had to kill him? That's not justifiable. So at least with Nil, I'd have a reason. For Bryn, my reason would be selfish, and since I would end up killing them both, I'd rather go with the guy that was looking for the actual fight. Next question from True Psycho. Hey Jay, I was going to ask a question about politics, but I figured you were going to get those type of questions anyway, so I'll pick a different topic. You said you had a lot of problems with LinkedIn. What are the issues you've had with it, and how would you actually fix them? P.S. How about those Giants? Man, fuck you about the Giants. I can rant about them, but that's obviously not the topic. The topic is LinkedIn, and you were obviously paying attention to the day that I said one day I would want to rant about that site. LinkedIn is a glorified version of Facebook with your resume on it. That's it. Not only is that shit a glorified version of Facebook, but it's also a site where people can easily claim shit and lie about shit that just isn't true. And without any way to dispute it or knowing that people are lying about their experience, is one gigantic lying social network. That's all it is. LinkedIn likes to pretend it's this social site for professionals, which is utter bullshit. Basically, it's just like fucking MySpace, where your page connects to other people that you either know or you don't know, or that are potentially in your field or your company. And while you can connect personally with people on the site, it does nothing. Do you really think people are looking at coworkers' files and clicking on yours and thinking, oh man, this is the person that I really think needs to work for me. I need this person on my team simply because I saw some shit about them on the internet. No, of course not. LinkedIn connections with coworkers is nothing more than fucking friends on Facebook or any other social media that allows you to highlight people that you actually know. Now, as for information on that bull site, much like a private resume, people can put whatever the fuck they want on there. People can list all kinds of jobs or positions and then turn their profile private so that it makes verifying that shit almost impossible, similar to what paper resumes were years ago. One of the biggest fucking frauds that I see all the time on that website, freelancers. Freelancers and contractors are people who do work for companies, but they're not employees. Hence, you're a freelancer. You're your own private self-employed business. You invoice the company and you get paid through expenses as opposed to a normal salary. Then these motherfuckers turn around and they post that shit on LinkedIn anyway, as if like, you know, they worked for Google, they worked for Microsoft, they worked for Bloomberg, they worked for JP Morgan. They could have worked on a 6-month project that they knew was going to end, and they add Google consultant to their profile. No, you weren't, you fucking liar. And as a company, it's pretty damn hard to find people who are doing this and have them remove your contact from your info account. You weren't an employee of Google. You were a fucking freelancer who invoiced them. That does not make you their employee, fuckstick. There are no controls over that shit. And because background checks do not occur until after an interview, people know they can lie about whatever they want up to that point. They could give anything they want up until they receive a background check from a new company that's actually hiring them. Another scam that people pull, knowing the shit is public and coworkers will see this, is they keep their experience brief. For example, being a financial manager, someone will say that they were responsible for business expenses for the company on LinkedIn, which could be true. Coworkers see that, so they know the person isn't lying about that on the public persona. However, on a resume, then you would see the bullshit. Manage worldwide expenses for 20,000 employees. Balance the budget for 15 departments costing $2 billion. Overhauled complete financial systems to ensure compliance with federal laws. Meanwhile, you did none of that shit. Your public resume keeps things legit, but then you turn around and you beef up your private resume and you pass that shit off to companies. With today's day and age of millennials wanting to do things faster and whatnot, one of the biggest flaws of LinkedIn is that you have all these millennial recruiters. You want them to half-ass their way through life. So what's the first thing they're going to do? And what's the first website they visit? You guessed it, LinkedIn. Are they screening for competencies? No, of course not. They look at your picture, they look at your job title, maybe they look at a couple of lines of your career, and then they contact you. If they like your looks and your resume, then they email you for a job opportunity. But those who don't have a picture but have an outstanding resume, well, I'm sorry, you just don't have the experience we're looking for. Basically, it's become a social trap that disguises as a recruiting tool. It's like putting your resume on Facebook and hoping employers will see it. It's not a replacement for traditional recruiting methods. And as a matter of fact, it's a step back from traditional methods in trying to find better candidates. Now, as far as asking how you would fix this shit, I would just get rid of the whole damn website. I wouldn't try to fix it. I would just utterly fucking eliminate the website. The only thing that I would possibly do is give companies control of a little section of their own website. So, for example, if you're Microsoft, if you're Google, you have access to log into LinkedIn, see how many people have listed that they have worked for you. If you feel like verifying it, or you want to actually press a button that says verified, this is a Microsoft employee, this was a Google employee, they can do so. But otherwise, the site itself is nothing more than a fucking scam. I'll tell you right now, when it comes to recruiting, the best candidates for your positions are the ones that do not want to be found via Google search. These are the people that would actually send their resume to the companies they want to work for because they have the experience that a company is looking for. Otherwise, LinkedIn, utter trash fucking website. It is basically a social network that puts fake resumes out on the internet. Last question from Prestige Gamers from Brown Power. What do you think about PlayerUnknown Battleground as an early access game being considered for Game of the Year alongside Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Super Mario Odyssey, and The Legend of Zelda, even though it's only in the early access phase and not a fully released game? I'll tell you right now, it's not fair to all the games if it's considered for Game of the Year. And here's why. If a game is still in early access, it's still in like alpha phase or beta phase, sort of like Scam Citizen that's never going to be finished. If it's only a partial game and it's being measured against another game, what happens when the game fully releases? If the game releases the following year, what do? You add it to the Game of the Year awards the next year as well? No. Do you judge it as an incomplete product because all you have is a partial game? No. To me, early access means the game isn't finished. It isn't complete. It still has more to go. Now, granted, there are games that are going to have downloadable content. There are games that are always going to have add-ons as you go along, expansions or whatever the case may be. But essentially, what is a game that people would get a fully endgame product for? Is it a finished game? The words early access to me means that it's not a finished product. So there's no reason for that game to be matched up against Horizon Zero Dawn or the next Mario game, whatever the fuck it is. When a game is complete, that's when it should be considered for Game of the Year awards. If it's not complete, wait till its completion, then add it to that next year's Game of the Year awards. But essentially, if it's an incomplete game, no, it should not qualify for Game of the Year. AVX Gamer wants to know, who scares you more with access to nuclear weapons, Kim Jong-un or Comrade Trump? Oh, man, it's Trump, and that's not even a question, man. Look, North Korea has yet to prove they can actually launch a nuclear weapon. You know, they certainly have them. I don't think it's any secret about that at this point. The world let them create a nuclear supply because they didn't think they were capable of doing it. But they managed to create enriched uranium. What they haven't been able to prove, though, is that they have an ICBM. That's short for Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. Basically, they have the range to reach South Korea or possibly Japan. It is highly doubtful they would actually even be able to reach Hawaii, considering most of their launch tests, which they've tried in the past couple of years, and they say they're satellite launches, they all end up failing in the water. So the fact that they're not able to reach other countries other than who's locally shows they do not have the capability of being a super world power with nuclear weapons. Trump, on the other hand, has access to the world's second most nukes, only trailing Russia in terms of how many we have. And with virtually anybody that could piss off Trump on fucking Twitter alone, putting that child in charge of nuclear weapons is fucking scary. So scary, in fact, that our own government, the Democrats mainly, they're trying to craft a law to prevent Trump from being able to have the final say in nuclear war. They want a law that would require military generals' approval. That goes to show you how fucking scared our own citizens are of Trump, let alone this fucking meatball in goddamn North Korea. Next question from MI2 Lethal. What are your thoughts about the recent patent by MoneyVision, which will use matchmaking to encourage new players to spend money on microtransactions? And then he gives a little bit of opinion as well as some of the examples that have been going on right now in some of the games today. First off, let's talk about the patent. Just because they received a patent on something doesn't mean they're actually going to do it. You know, matter of fact, about 40% of patents in the United States are not used, and it's merely used as filing to prevent a competitor from coming up with an idea and patenting it first. Sadly, in today's world, patents have become more of a protection now for intellectual property than someone actually inventing something and creating something that companies can sell. It's basically like new age intellectual corporate warfare. That being said, I think this is being made into a bigger deal than it really is. And look, here's why. I already did a video on whole microtransactions and loot boxes before, and this argument stems from that. In fact, as long as this shit is optional, it's not going to matter. Look, the undeniable reality is that if microtransactions weren't selling, they wouldn't waste their time offering them. If people weren't buying pink kitty gun camos, whatever, and fucking horse armor, Dance Dance Revolution emotes in Destiny, this wouldn't be an issue, but people have no problem pissing this money away. So Activision and their team of highly paid monkeys figured out a way how to show microtransactions through lobbies and matchmaking. Again, if this is a gun camo, character skin, outfits and bullshit, who gives a fuck if someone on the other team paid for it? But if this becomes pay to win, like buying a Destiny exotic gun outright, or a Call of Duty perk that doesn't unlock for another 20 levels, now you're getting into some bullshit territory. You know, if the lobby stops every time and asks if you want to buy microtransactions, that's bullshit. You know, it's like if games ended up like fucking amusement park rides where, you know, if you finish up in the goddamn gift shop. Oh, that's bullshit. Y'all motherfuckers ever seen that shit? Y'all ever been to like Disney or Universal Studios? Every fucking ride ends in a goddamn gift shop. Imagine stomping kids in a game, beating the absolute fuck out of them, and instead of bringing you to the next lobby or matchmaking, it puts you directly into the in-game store to buy shit. People would lose their goddamn minds if somebody implemented that. I think people getting on this kick that microtransactions are bad for games miss out on the point that people actually buy this shit. And as long as it's cosmetics, doesn't affect gameplay, doesn't affect what you do in the game, it's really a moot point. You know, when it crosses over into gameplay items, weapons, armors, upgrades, and shit like that, when it becomes pay to win, that becomes a problem. But the patent itself, the concept of allowing people to buy microtransactions from a lobby, is not inherently horrible. If they implement it in a shitty way, then we'll see how bad it is. But just this idea that they're going to try and bring microtransactions to gamers quicker, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a horrible thing. It's just, of course, Money Vision trying to get more money. But if they were to implement that and almost forcing people to see the microtransactions every time, then that would be bullshit. Next question from the Mad Pack X. You said before that you don't like watching Twitch streamers because they beg for money to fund their hobby. What do you think about games done quickly? FYI, games done quick occurs twice a year. Awesome games done quick in the winter and summertime games. Name comes quick. Whatever the hell. Since 2010, gamers from around the US, maybe the world, gather around to do speedruns to raise money for a number of charities. Most commonly, the Prevent Cancer Foundation and Doctors Without Borders. The live stream is on Twitch and each game is later posted to YouTube. Here's a Mike Tyson's Punch-Out run from whatever the fuck. I mean, you have to realize there's a difference though, and you're stating it right in the message. They're raising money for someone other than themselves, which is a bit different. However, and you know there's always however, you know that some of these people are doing this 95% altruistically and 5% of them are doing it for their own self-serving purposes. You know, raising money for charity, by all means, it's a noble act. Anybody can think of themselves every minute of the day, but charity that you actually give money to those who need it or are less fortunate, that's a commendable act. But let's get real here for a second. These charity events, in essence, a show with widespread appeal, a show that could potentially bring in viewers that didn't know you existed at this point. Essentially, the chance to partake in a charity adds more exposure to your channel, because let's be honest here for a second. Do you really think people who make a living off of viewers watching them are not looking at an event with tons of new potential watchers visiting their potential channel in the future? Come on, do you not think for 1 second these people aren't hoping that at some point this event gives them a spotlight to bring in potential viewers? And it doesn't have to be much. It could be a fast interview. Hey, here is AssLicker69 on the stream raising dollars by taking phone calls. AssLicker69, give a shout out to the 100,000 people watching right now. Hey everyone, this is AssLicker69, hoping you donate to the cause and bring in plenty of dollars into the charity for those less fortunate. Guess what? In those 5 seconds, that's exposure. That's potentially more people that'll know who AssLicker69 is than he had chances before. It's plenty of opportunity for people to wonder, hey, who the fuck is this person, and let me go visit their channel. So again, raising money for charity with speedruns and live streams, it's commendable, but it's not 100% altruistic. Deep down, anybody who sells themselves knows that additional exposure in any form is likely to bring more viewers to your channel, and that's exactly why Twitch streamers would do that. It's potentially more exposure for themselves in the future. That's 2 down, 2 more to go. 2 more videos left this week for the question and answer sessions. Obviously, if you haven't seen your question yet, that means it's going to be coming. As always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's question and answer video. which will have quite a variety of different questions that are coming.